Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got something a little different for you. My very first review of an EasyJet flight. I'm flying from Tenerife to Liverpool, and as always, you can count on me for a no-nonsense, honest review of the whole experience. I'll give you the good, the bad, and even the downright ugly. And let me tell you, this flight has definitely given me something to talk about. In fact, and I don't say this lightly, but this could be the dirtiest plane I've ever stepped foot on. From grimy seats to toilets that look like they hadn't been cleaned in days, maybe even weeks. Now, has EasyJet really dropped the ball in 2024, or is this just a one-off disaster? Well, let's get into it, but first, we're going to circle back to the beginning at Tenerife Airport to join me to see how this journey unfolds. So welcome to Tenerife Airport. Now, I paid about £100 to get myself from Tenerife to Liverpool, and that's a 4.5-hour flight in a basic economy seat. But just be aware of EasyJet and their strict cabin luggage restrictions, especially with the standard travel light fare. The maximum size allowance is a lot smaller than you might expect, and smaller than most airlines allow for hand luggage. So rather than risk cramming it into a tiny cabin bag and getting charged at the gate, I decided to pay for my suitcase to go into the hold. It cost me about £50 one way. Now on my flight there were lots of passengers who weren't so lucky, and they ended up having to stump up extra cash at check-in. After checking in and making our way through security, we had some time to explore the airport, and since we were flying on a basic economy ticket, lounge access wasn't an option. However, we found a nice spot to grab a quick bite, and I went for a chicken baguette, which was €5, and I washed it down with a cappuccino, which was €3. Since we hadn't pre-booked any meals for the flight, this snack was a good choice to hold us over. It definitely hit the spot, and it wasn't long before it was time to board. For those who thought they had escaped the dreaded bag check at check-in, there was another surprise waiting at the gate. EasyJet staff were measuring everyone's cases again, credit card machines in hand, and sure enough, they caught another group of passengers whose bags didn't meet the size limits, forcing them to cough up extra cash at the gate. So after the final checkpoint at the gate, instead of then letting us get on board the plane, we were then crammed into a warm stairwell with no air conditioning for about 20 minutes. Now, EasyJet does offer speedy boarding as an option, but if I had paid for it, I'd be pretty frustrated. There was nothing speedy about this process at all. Finally, the doors were opened and we were let out, and I really enjoyed the walk across the tarmac towards our plane. The warm air, the sounds of the engines, and the smell of the jet fuel all added to the excitement of the journey ahead. Since we were seated in row 27, we used the rear entrance to board the aircraft. Once we found our seats, I quickly realised just how filthy the entire area was. There were stains and old food debris all over the seats and carpets, not just in our row, but also in the rows in front and behind us. It was shocking. The dirt didn't look fresh, it seemed like it had been there for days, and it was like the plane had never been cleaned. Now, I understand that accidents and spills can happen, but this just wasn't a one-off. It felt like a build-up of passengers coming and going without any proper cleaning taking place. After seeing the state of the seats and surrounding areas, I didn't even want to sit down, let alone touch the windows, the tray table, or any of the plastics around me. Everything just felt really grimy. And as bad as the seating area was, the toilets were even worse, but more on that in a bit.
We are nice and early, so fingers crossed ATC are going to let us go. Just getting lots of bags on the hold. All being well, should be starting engines the next 5-10 minutes from now and getting out of here. So conditions en route, nice strong tailwinds, region of 3 hours and 45 minutes back towards Liverpool. As I said, maximum flying speed, get back to you later on with an update on the weather and arrival into Liverpool.
Once we reached cruising altitude, the drink and snack service began shortly after. EasyJet has recently partnered with Costa Coffee, and as a big fan of Costa, I decided to try out a cappuccino. Now unfortunately it wasn't great. It was a packet mix and the taste did not live up to expectations. I wouldn't order it again if given the choice. That said, to be fair to EasyJet, they do offer a pretty extensive menu with a good variety of snacks and drinks. They also have meal deals including breakfast options at reasonable prices, along with a decent selection of beers and other alcoholic beverages. So while the cappuccino was disappointing, the rest of the menu had some solid choices, so just steer clear of the Costa Coffee. So let's go and check out the toilets. As you can see, the toilet was a complete disaster. There was old toilet paper dotted around, some mysterious liquid splashes up the walls, and weird stains on the back wall that I couldn't even begin to explain. The seat wasn't much better, covered in random marks that made me question everything. I can only assume that whoever was responsible for cleaning the toilets was also in charge of the seats and the carpets, because the level of neglect was shockingly consistent. Now I understand that airplane toilets are never going to be spotless and it's totally unrealistic to expect them to be cleaned after every passenger, but this was next level bad. It was so grimy that I didn't want to touch a single thing. Honestly, it was one of those moments where you consider just holding it for the entire flight.
Currently cruising at 36,000 feet, about 11 kilometres above the ground, with the ground speed approximately 500 miles an hour. Got a really good tailwind pushing us along, and because every single passenger turned up so early today, we're able to leave quite early. That means we're actually landing about 40 minutes early today. So we're landing about 10 past 11 in the UK, which is the same time as the Canaries. Weather when we get back, it's looking alright. It's a little on the cool side, about 17 degrees. It's a bit breezy, but there shouldn't be any clouds around, so hopefully a fairly nice evening ahead for us all.
So although the seats and the toilets were absolutely filthy, I have to admit the view from the window was still absolutely incredible. And despite the cleanliness issues, one major positive was the captain. He was excellent. He stayed in constant communication from the flight deck throughout the whole journey. Not only did he manage to get us home ahead of schedule, but he also kept us updated on our location and the route that we were taking, so full credit to him for a safe and early arrival. So then folks, let's quickly sum up. Now, this was my first ever time on an EasyJet flight on the channel, and it was also probably the dirtiest plane I've ever had the pleasure of setting foot on. And I completely understand that EasyJet is a low-cost airline, but low cost shouldn't mean low standards, especially when it comes to basic cleanliness. I mean, paying customers shouldn't have to sit in someone else's leftover food and mess. Now, I recently flew to Tenerife with Jet2, that review will be out shortly, and their plane was absolutely spotless, even on an evening flight after a full day of it being in the sky. Now in contrast, this EasyJet flight, despite similar time of day, was just not up to that standard. Now, there were some positives. The ticket was only 100 quid, which I think is great value to get from Tenerife to the UK. The captain was absolutely fantastic, and most importantly, it got me home safely, so I can't complain too much about that. But I'm curious, have you flown with EasyJet recently? Was your plane clean, or did you have similar issues to mine? Let me know in the comments. I'll be flying with EasyJet again in the next couple of months, just to see if this cleanliness issue is a one-off or something more widespread across the whole fleet. So thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoy really honest reviews and you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.